It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, hands up. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! Did he get it?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. It's a Monday, and it has been a Monday around the office today.
Yes, it has.
For more reasons than one.
Yeah, lots of fun times. I was going to sink in. I had, it's supposed to be a light Monday because I didn't have to write my Monday cool down. I get to work on a lot of the stuff I normally send out on Monday, late Monday, early Tuesday. And instead, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff.
Which we don't need to bore you with.
No, we don't. It would be boring for most of you.
It's,
It's just headaches.
Started Friday.
The normal day.
Spilled into the weekend, and there was even more today. But nonetheless, the show goes on. And there was an exciting weekend in the Mountain West. We had, as we mentioned on Friday, two big games to monitor as bookends on the schedule for the Mountain West Conference. The first game of the day and the last game of the day, because of both had implications for more reasons than just one. But it was looking at the potential for separation in the conference standings and opportunities to pick up big wins, and proved to be that was the case. Both were exciting for different reasons, but UNLV picking up the big win over Fresno State, Boise State picking up their big win over Washington State. There was an exciting game in the middle with the Aztecs, the Lobos picking up picking up their first win. I don't know if I'll say it's a big win. And then there was a conference showdown with the Cowboys getting the first win. So we'll look at all of those. We'll hear from the coach and players from Utah State. Had a bye week this last week. Kind of assessing the team. What's the morale after 1-3 start, frustrating loss on the road, but now having to turn their attention to Boise State. Big trade in the NBA today or over the weekend. What does that mean for the Western Conference? And the latest RPI rankings for high school sports over the weekend. So we'll give you updates on the current standings as we're getting near the end of the regular season for girls soccer here quickly. Volleyball and football still have a few more weeks to go, but girls soccer regular season winding down here quickly. So what's the latest rankings look like for them? So a lot of different things on tap today. And as always, we'd love to hear from you, 435-339-0321 to join in on the Full Court Press text line.
Got a couple of texts there because we had one late last Friday that you may have missed at the very end.
Yeah, we noticed that after we'd moved off the topic and we're just wrapping up the show. But really, that is a better question for you to answer, I believe, Jason.
Yeah, because I actually did the math on this because 9 through 5 asking how many spots are left for basketball recruits. And, yeah, because they had the 5 recruits on IU, and JD got to talk about that at the tail end of the show. While I was off dealing with the early goings of this headache we've had in the office. But the answer is, as far as I know, 0. This would assume that nobody transfers during the offseason, which you cannot make that assumption. But next year's roster has 5 incoming freshmen and 5 departing seniors. So as things stand right now, if Jared Calhoun pulled off what is at this point impossible in the modern landscape of college basketball and retained everybody transfer-wise, he would just walk into next season with the full roster. So that's where things go. So wouldn't expect there to be more additions via high school recruits. They could. I mean, Danny Sprinkle added recruits when he didn't necessarily have open roster spots to fill.
Right.
There was just, I guess, an assumption that he was going to have to fill those via, that he was going to have guys transfer, and he assumed that they would step in. Obviously, things change with the coaching staff and all that, but as things stand right now, next year's roster could be built with the current roster minus seniors plus the high school recruits.
Yeah, I suppose there's also the chance that somebody could redshirt. I don't know if any of these are going to be mission kids where they commit and then they're going to be gone for a while. I don't think any of them are. Could be mistaken.
Yeah, I never really know anyway. You just have to hear somebody say it because I don't know how many of these kids are LDS.
Yeah, so there's a chance that he could still recruit a few more high school players, but my assumption is that again, I'm a nobody and I don't know anything, but my assumption would be that they're probably about done recruiting for high school players, and that any other roster additions would be through transfer portal if those positions open up on the roster.
Yeah, because at this point, you're already adding 5 freshmen, players with 0 college experience,
right?
Most of whom probably aren't going to be ready for big roles day one. Now, sometimes they are.
Yeah, they're going to need development. They're going to need time.
Yeah, but you can never expect a freshman to, like, some of them can step in as true freshmen. We've seen that before, but you cannot expect that of anyone. So you kind of hope some of them are, but several of those guys may redshirt their first year or play limited roles in their first year. So you're going to need a backbone of the team to be held together by either veterans that you hope roll over to next year. You hope that Mason Falslev, Isaac Johnson, I'm suddenly spacing all the, Tucker Anderson, guys that have more years of eligibility. You'd hope they'd form the backbone of the team. Because if the roster as it would stand today for next year, that's a weird thing to say, but if everyone stayed, you would have that kind of backbone. It would actually be a pretty good situation. You'd have veterans that can take a bigger step. You're losing guys like Ian Martinez, but you'd be able to replace them with guys like Mason Falslev, Isaac Johnson, Tucker Anderson, taking those steps forward, and then you'd have the new generation coming in as freshmen. If some of those guys transferred, you would want to, add other veterans via the transfer portal. Kind of like what Jared Calhoun did with this year's transfer class. The majority of them, I think all of them except for like Tucker Anderson and Braden Housley, like the 7 or 8 transfers he added, all of them except like 2 are leaving this year. I guess Pavel Stasic. So he had 4 or 5 transfers that have 1 year left. Drake Allen, Dayton Albury, Abin Gadarazzi, Dexter Acano. Added a bunch of seniors, guys who are one and done. So if you had someone like, heaven forbid, Mason or Isaac or whatever, somebody transfer, you would want to bring in another veteran. You wouldn't want to bring in another freshman because you've already got 5 coming in.
Right. You already have a lot of youth. You want to bring in somebody who has a little bit more experience, who's already been working on their body to play at this level, and development and leadership. So, yeah, interesting to see how the recruiting has transpired for Coach Calhoun and his staff. Very exciting to see how it's developed so far in this young tenure for Coach Calhoun. And going down, at least before any game has been played or any of these guys have actually donned a jersey, as certainly one of the highest rated recruiting classes that Utah State perhaps has ever seen, if not in a very long time.
Yeah, certainly. You've never had this many, 4-star recruits and 3-star recruits. Usually you have a 3-star recruit, couple of guys who just aren't on anybody's radar, so they're not ranked. But this one, it's like, holy cow, you've brought in a recruiting class that you may very well see 2 or 3 freshmen playing critical roles for the team next year, which is absurd. Sometimes you get one, usually it's a redshirt freshman that plays well. In the history of Utah State, having productive freshmen is fairly robust. Every other year or so, usually every year, but if not, then every other year, you have a freshman playing a critical role. But it's the one.
Right.
Not 2 or 3 or playing
5.
really huge roles. I think the closest you get was the year that Kobe McEwen and Sam Merrill were both freshmen. Right. They were both playing key roles, but that was pretty rare, and they were obviously both really good players. I mean, we saw what Sam Merrill became and Kobe McEwen when he bounced around, but was pretty much good wherever he went. So you may have a repeat of that next year where you could have a couple of 4-star recruits come in and play big roles immediately, which would kind of be amazing. Although then you have to worry about them transferring because that's just the way college basketball works these days.
Yeah. So anyway, interesting basketball discussion here with the news that happened Friday of Utah State adding their 5th player to Coach Calhoun's high school verbal recruitments so far. Nothing in writing yet, but so far looking very exciting for Utah State's basketball future. 2444 before the show began this afternoon. Really hope the defense used the bye week to prepare to stop Boise State's rushing game. Can't wait to hear what number you guys settle on for the over-under rushing yards for Ashton Genty in pick 6 this week.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to make that a mandatory line. Just one of us will do it.
Yeah.
And we'll just set it and roll with that.
Yeah, the guy has been just an absolute beast.
Yeah, and I'll maybe say this again at some point during the week, Eric, but the thought I had kind of over the weekend is when I look throughout, I've been following football. It's not like I've been following it forever. I'm not that old, but you see running backs who you feel like are just a product of their offensive line. You see them, these are like the one and done guys. You see them in college. You see them in the NFL. It's like this guy had one really good year and then he fell off. It was probably because he just was a product of the offensive line, or maybe just kind of a one-shot wonder where things just kind of lined up. And you look back, you can maybe kind of see it because maybe he's not this super dynamic guy. And I'll say this, Ashton Genty does not fit that in the slightest. Whatever the opposite of that one and done, like product of the offensive line, Ashton Genty is the complete opposite. Like that's just who he is. Like you see it where some running backs are just able to take advantage of yards created by the offensive line or a little bit of talent. Genty creates yards out of nowhere.
Right. He's very slippery, but he's very strong. He's a powerful runner. We saw this Saturday against Washington State. They had him hemmed in. They had him dead to rights multiple times, and he busted through those tackles. In fact, there's one touchdown that he scored from, I don't know how far out it was, 35, 40 yards or more, and he broke through at least 4 tackles. Yeah, and those were like not just like a guy's passing by and his hand is there. I mean, there were guys that had their bodies on him or both arms on him in position to bring him down, and he fought his way through it. And eventually they thought they had him wrapped up, but he still had enough strength to dive into the end zone for the touchdown.
Yeah, well, it's incredible balance, and along with power, not in the power of him being 6'3", 240 that we generally think of as power, these power running backs. But it's a similar way when I talk about guys like Robert Briggs or even look at Darwin Thompson where they run with power even though they're small. I don't know how, I haven't looked up how big Genty is, but he runs with that power and has great speed and just as important, acceleration where maybe top end speed, maybe somebody's faster than him, but he just gets out in front of him and you can't catch him because he started so fast. And, you know, the way a lot of guys tackle these days is they just hit you really hard and they hope you fall down. And for most humans, that's enough to knock you down because you lose your balance, you fall over, or maybe somebody else comes and wraps you up. But Genty just keeps his balance and, you know, is able to get his feet going really quickly and just accelerates again. And that's what you see on a lot of those times where he breaks tackles is he tanks a big hit, stays on his feet, keeps his balance while being on his feet, and he's able to escape. So it's just absolutely absurd. You know, the Washington State game was probably the first time I got to see him play just down by down as opposed to just watching a highlight reel. And just seeing that down by down, yeah, sure, he breaks off the 30, 40, 50-yard runs, but, you know, creating an 8-yard run here, a 4-yard run here out of nothing, like that's what's kind of making him special.
Yeah, 259 yards rushing against Washington State, 4 touchdowns, averaging 10 yards a carry. Just absolutely absurd numbers.
Yeah,
for Ashton Genty.
If you extrapolate a full season where Boise State plays in the conference title game, and obviously a bowl game after that, he's on pace. And mind you, on pace through 4 games is kind of a dubious thing, but still, it is a third of the season. Well, slightly less than a third of the season if you're talking about a 14-game season minimum. He'd be on pace for a 3,000-yard rushing season.
Yeah, he's already got 845 yards.
Yeah. And perhaps more absurd. Like 3,000 yards is like absurd, but like you can maybe see somebody doing it. But he's also on pace for like 45 touchdowns, which I can tell you that's not happening.
No.
But it is still absurd that he's on pace for that through again, 4 games. And one of those 4 games, he didn't play a whole lot because it was a blowout against Portland State, and he only carried the ball 11 times. And the other 3 games, he's run for at least 190 yards and at least 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, 13 touchdowns on the season so far. He had 14 all of last season. And so he's almost hit last year's number of touchdowns. Last year he ran for a little over 13, almost 13 and a half 100 yards. Clearly he's a handful. And we'll talk more about trying to defend and come up with game plans.
Yeah, so we've done enough gushing about Ashton Jeanty, the opposing player. But again, we are talking about a guy who may actually get legitimate Heisman coverage. Maybe. He's in the Mountain West. He may be automatically disqualified from winning the Heisman because of that.
Yeah, but he absolutely deserves to be in the discussion.
That's the problem. He may just be in the discussion. He's like a defensive player. He'll be in the discussion, but nobody will take him seriously.
Yeah.
He'd have to put up the 3,000 yards and 45 touchdowns just to finish in second.
To force the issue.
Or to get first place votes. But the point there, though, is the overarching and most important part of this conversation is Utah State's defense. Because that's been, as you've talked about, where, you know, me and some other people have maybe focused a little bit too much on the offense and their problems. But as you've highlighted, doesn't matter how good the offense is. They've been giving up oodles of points to everybody, at least everybody that has FBS next to their name. And I know 5662 kind of talk about this versus how many points does the defense allow against the next 2 opponents, and does it break? Probably 80. And also saying, does Jeanty even see the fourth quarter? The answer to both of those is probably yes and no. But that's the pessimistic.
I don't. Boise State's not going to break 80 against.
No,
the
next
Aggies.
2 opponents.
Oh, the defense allow against the next 2 opponents combined.
Yeah, combined, I would presume.
Yeah, probably. It'd be close.
Both of them are looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, I mean, so the Boise State beating Washington State 45-24. UNLV, just with all the noise last week, Haj Malik Williams comes in and makes everybody wonder, why wasn't this guy the starter all along?
Yeah.
'Cause he was phenomenal, and they just spanked Fresno State 59-14. So now both Boise State and UNLV, well, I guess it depends on, I shouldn't say both, but depends on which rankings you're looking at. But
aren't both in the AP poll now?
Let's see. I know. See, Boise State is 21st in the AP. UNLV is tied for 25th. UNLV is in the coaches poll at 23rd, but Boise State is not.
Yeah, they're right on the edge at 106. I combined like 3 different numbers I'm looking at right now.
That's 103 votes.
They have 103
points, I should say.
And the team that they're behind, Illinois, has 122 points.
So effectively, Boise State is 26th.
Yeah, I think that's where I got that random 6 from.
So, yeah, big games for both of them. UNLV in both polls, Boise State in one, not in the other, which is interesting just comparing the two. I mean, Boise State is 21st in one poll and not even ranked in the other.
I mean, the coaches poll, it almost mirrors the AP poll. There's one minor difference until you get to number 11, and then you start seeing some differences. They have a different number 1 and number 2.
Yeah.
But 3 through 10 is the exact same.
San Diego State on the road at Central Michigan. Just struggled to find any offense in the second half. They had the lead, and they allowed 9 second-half points, basically a walk-off field goal to win it for the Chippewas. So San Diego State 1-3 to start the season. Certainly Aggie fans know how that feels. And the couple other games on the schedule, New Mexico State, the in-state rivalry, potential future conference opponent rivalry. I don't know.
Maybe.
But an offensive showdown between these two, 50-40 for New Mexico, getting their first win over the New Mags.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the fate of most New Mexico games in which they're competitive. Now, it ended up being a 10-point game, and I think that maybe made it look closer because it wasn't a game that I watched. But
43 points combined between the two teams in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but New Mexico pretty much keeping an arm's length between them and New Mexico State really the entire game because, I think at one point they were up like 50-33 or something like that. Let's see, because they were up, enter the fourth quarter, they're up 30-17. And it basically goes back and forth between New Mexico being up 3 scores and 2 scores. Because it goes 30-20, 36-20, 36-26, 43-26, 43-33, 50-33, 50-40. Like it's that arm's length that they kept the entire game, basically ever since the second quarter when they went up 21-7. But the thing is, like with New Mexico, this is going to be, I think a lot of their games, as I said, when they're competitive, they're going to be high scoring. Win or lose, if they're competitive, it means there's a lot of points being scored because New Mexico's not stopping anybody, but they're scoring a lot of points. Kind of like what you almost have to hope the Aggies are the rest of the year, unless they fix their defense, where if their offense gets going, the Aggies are going to make things interesting. Actually, it was kind of like last year, where some of their more interesting games, like against New Mexico, it was a high-scoring game. The Lobos seem like they're going to be doing that the whole year. If they don't score points, they're going to get blown out. If they score points, you'll get 50-40 games.
And then the last game to discuss here on the Full Court Press for the Mountain West this weekend was Wyoming, also getting their first win of the season, beating Air Force 31-19. Falcons really struggling this year, a team that's had pretty solid stretch here. The last several have really struggled at the start of the season, and Wyoming finally getting the monkey off their back and finding the end zone multiple times. Evan Svoboda, decent game, not great, but that was Wyoming doing enough to get the win and finally finding their first victory in their 1-0 in conference play.
Yeah, there are no more winless teams in the Mountain West. You got the last winless teams getting their first victory of the season. New Mexico and Wyoming, I believe, being those two, the only remaining winless teams prior to this week. So, yeah, it's kind of catastrophic for Air Force, kind of a godsend for Wyoming, as Air Force was kind of holding out, like hope that maybe they were going to fix things coming out of their bye week. Maybe I should have paid attention to what they show because I had them 5th in my power rankings, and basically putting a team 5th in my power rankings is a curse. They had the Aggies there, and they lost to Temple. Then I put Air Force there, and they lost to Wyoming. So heaven help Colorado State, who's the new number 5 in my power rankings. They may be in trouble. But Air Force, I guess they kind of showed us who they were initially. I was saying maybe they aren't that team that, they got they were just low scoring in their first 3 games. It was 21 against their FCS opponent, which is their only win, Merrimack. They were 21-6. They only score 7 against San Jose State, 3 against Baylor. Then they get 19 against Wyoming, who's obviously one of the worst teams in the country. But what does that make Air Force now? They lost to one of the worst teams in the country.
Yeah, they're falling like a rock.
Whether you have Air Force or Wyoming at the bottom, I guess the Falcons are 0-2 in Mountain West play, so no matter what, they're at the bottom of the standings. But, yeah, it's not looking good for them. But they've had bad years before. They'll probably bounce back, or maybe Troy Calhoun will finally call it quits. They'll be like, I don't want to work back from it this time.
We'll see. But that's a quick look around the Mountain West Conference. We'll continue to get your thoughts, your questions on the Full Court Press text line, and we'll hear from the Utah State coach, Nate Dreiling, interim head coach Nate Dreiling, and some of his players who met with the media today. How would they assess how the team got through the bye week, and what's the team morale right now after a 1-3 start in the bye week? Kind of more time to sit and stew over a stinging loss at Temple, but they got to turn their attention to Boise State. So we'll hear from them coming up on the other side of this timeout here on the Full Court Press.
What is love? Love is what we live for. Love is timeless, never-ending. Love is when you say your name with hers and it has that special ring to it. At Jarek's Fine Jewelry, we know what love is. Our fine collection of engagement rings feature a variety of diamonds and colorful styles.
And if you can't find your perfect ring,
Jarek's Fine Jewelry will help custom design one that is the perfect fit. When it's love, it's Jarek's Fine Jewelry.
Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Make it special, make it Jarrett's.
Les Olson IT is your source for top quality technology. We carry the latest desktop and laptop PCs in stock, configured to your specific needs, and backed by our award-winning support team. And if your business demands high-performance hardware, we offer custom-built computers that can tackle any task. We also offer great computer accessories like monitors, keyboards, speakers, Fujitsu document scanners, and more. Get a quote today.
Les Olson IT.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
This is Catherine Buse with Cache Valley Bank, and we understand that concerns about fraud can weigh heavily on you. Your peace of mind is important to us. That's why we're committed to looking out for you and your family. Our team keeps a vigilant eye on your account. If you ever have concerns or need support, we're just a call or visit away. Whether you need advice or just someone to talk to, our friendly staff is ready to help. We're more than just a bank. We're your neighbors, and we care about your security. Visit your local branch today. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
They never could play it, but they sure can talk about it. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker on the Full Court Press.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. 435-339-0321. That's the Full Court Press text line if you want to weigh in.
One quick text before we jump into our next topic, 9-15, asking, has anyone won the Heisman in the last 25 years in the Mountain West? The answer to that is no. I went and double-checked. As far as I'm aware, only one player has won the Heisman from a team that at any point was in the Mountain West. That was BYU. They were in the WAC.
That was the WAC.
And then BYU was, Ty Detmer. They went to the Mountain West later, but obviously that didn't happen in the Mountain West era. Predated the Mountain West, which was formed in 99. And he won it in 90, I think. I have the page in front of me. I can just look it up. Yeah, it was 1990.
Okay.
So, you have Oregon State. They got a Heisman. Remember, that's back in the 60s, but they're also not in the Mountain West.
No.
And may never be.
Not
Or
officially.
maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to have that later on the docket. There's just more talk of, they should just get together and merge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the couple that just is always arguing, and they just need to they either need to get together, like make it official. And
it's basically a rom-com.
Or
it's what we're living.
Or just stop flirting with you. Don't be next to each other.
Yeah. That's the problem, is you're going to end up with a rivalry between these two teams. But
yeah.
We'll get into that in a second, because we wanted to shift into Utah State. Coming out of the bye week, what are the keys for Utah State with this bye week? They go into it 1-3, which was almost the worst possible way they could have gone to the bye week. Can't say it's the worst, because you could have lost to Robert Morris. And I mean, they were trailing at halftime.
Yeah, true.
But on the spectrum of best to worst scenarios for Utah State going into this bye week, they're really close to that bottom, where you lost badly to USC, couldn't really hold on much against Utah. You lost to Temple by 3 scores, and you're 1-3, and you're potentially staring 1-5, maybe even 1-6, because your next 3 opponents are ranked Boise State, ranked UNLV, and Washington State, who's pretty solid team themselves, consistently kind of landing in the 40s, 50s, 60s in those 1 through 134 polls. So this was a crucial bye week to sit back, for some, get out of the locker room, get out of the stadium, go clear your head. A lot of them did that.
Yeah.
And then get back, practice, figure things out, because you're going to have to figure them out quickly, because you got a heck of a schedule still to come. They may not have even gotten through the worst part of the schedule. which is crazy considering two of their recent opponents are both ranked in the top 20.
Yeah, in fact, Coach Dreiling basically said one of his top priorities in the bye week was just to get his team healthy. And it helps if I have the right thing. Oh, yes, this board is different than our other board. I always seem to forget this. So let's try that again.
The big thing was just get healthy. We got a bunch of guys that are banged up and shoulders and things like that after the first couple games. So getting back to full force, which is obviously going to be needed for this week. But then it's just getting back to do what we do and paying attention to the small details, right? We kind of talked about that in the past. We do things really well sometimes, but it's not all the time thing. So now it's just a consistency deal, and that was our major focus.
Getting team healthy and focusing on those little details. Because that seems to be one of this team's Achilles heel, if you will, that they seem to be in mostly a good space, but there's little things that just keep hampering this team from coming together, especially when it matters the most.
Yeah, it's a drop here, a bad pass there, a missed block in a short run that sets up second and long, or a drop or a missed pass that results in a third and long, and then you get in third and long, and that's just a low conversion rate to begin with. And when they've had those little mistakes, they just kind of compound. They snowball. And so that's what you're seeing is these little mistakes compounding into bigger issues. And it just makes everything harder. And we talked about this kind of last week. One of the stats I went over, and I can't remember the specifics, but it was how many drives Utah State has had where they get into opposing territory. They get into plus territory. Like I think I had the cutoff at like the opponent 35-yard line.
Yeah.
And where more than half of their drives, or almost exactly half of their drives, there's like 9 out of 20, I think it was, where they get inside the 35-yard line and they get 0 points, let alone how many times they fail to come away with a touchdown. When they get in, so deep into enemy territory or even into the red zone. And so that's kind of the example of, okay, they can get into enemy territory. They can get 20 yards. They can get a couple of first downs and one or two big plays to get into plus territory, but then they shoot themselves in the foot. And the ways they've done that have been as numerous as the sands of the sea.
Right. It's not like they need to address this one thing and then they'll be able to get over the hump.
Yeah, it's
seemingly always something different.
Yeah, it's not just penalties, because you've had a couple of those drives that penalties backed them out of it, and they had to punt or kick a field goal. You've had turnovers in the red zone. You've had multiple times you get stopped on fourth down, and like on the goal line you get stopped on fourth down, and it's just a little bit of everything, and it just comes back to executing. The team needs to execute, and they're not doing it, and so it's affecting the team in just a myriad of different ways. And so there's not just one fix. It's not, well, the quarterback needs to stop throwing interceptions, or the wide receivers need to stop dropping the ball, or the linemen need to stop holding or missing blocks in crucial situations. It's just all of the above.
Right. It's the little things. In fact, Jon Ross Maye kind of talked a little bit about that, how, and really Spencer Petras as well, that each individual, they do their part, then and do it well, this team can be a lot better than what their record seems to indicate.
Yeah, I think coming out of this bye week, we definitely had a physical week of practice. Coach Dreiling wanted to make sure that we didn't take a step off the pedal at all. And I think us doing that, Spencer and all the leaders that we have on this team, just making sure that is the message. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have no time. We're 1-3, and that's our fault. So like Spencer said, we earned that record. We're not where we want to be, and we're going to improve that. And it's just about the work that we put in this week and now going out and executing it.
Yeah, going out and executing it.
That's all it is at this point. Because I don't think, as much as fans want to always just start talking about play calling and coaching and adjustments, and obviously we do that too. This is talk radio after all. It's not like we're the geniuses around here, but we tend to blame it on coaching and play calling and all that. I don't really know if there's really much of a scheme problem here, because when I look at some of the things Utah State is doing scheme-wise, you can see some positives there. You can see some things that are working, setups and payoffs that they're trying to pull off in the game, but then they screw it up because they mess up the execution. I mean, they lulled Temple to sleep to heck and back when setting up a fake punt. Probably would have scored a touchdown or got inside the 5-yard line on a fake punt. They caught everyone off guard, and it was going to be brilliant. But a false start. Like, that's what's going wrong here.
Right.
So they need to find a way to get over their own selves. And there's also, it's not like the coaches are perfect here, because when the team fades this often, there's probably something with coaching and adjustments. Or maybe it is the players. Maybe the players, I don't know, coaches coach and players play. At some point, there's a failure with the teams starting somewhat fast and then completely fading at the end of the game, one way or the other. The players seem to shoot themselves in the foot. Maybe there's some adjustments the coaches can make. But they made adjustments after the USC game. They made a monumental mistake of playing like pansies, and they said, oh, that doesn't work. Then they didn't play like pansies. No, it turns out we were leading the number 12 team in the country for a little bit when you actually decided to go out there and play. And, but then, again, shoot yourself in the foot and just keep running into that problem.
Yeah, and Coach Dreiling talked about that, I believe this was in response to a question you asked him about how this team seems to start pretty well. This is in contrast to teams that we've seen with Blake Anderson, where it was always slow starts. But we talked about this last week, that Utah State is even with their opponents in the first quarter, but it's the second and fourth quarters particularly where the Aggies are falling apart and getting left behind by their opponents.
It's more so just like critical moments. Right now we're just stopping ourselves when it's a big play, whether it's a false start penalty, right? Or whether it's just not being in the right spot. You're supposed to be on defense or not doing your technique. So we talked about just relaxing. Like, listen, we have nothing to lose, guys. We need to make sure we cut it loose out there, have fun, and play with great intensity. Because when we're loose and rolling, we're just about as good as anybody in the country, right? You saw opening quarter versus Utah, same thing 2 weeks ago versus Temple. But then when we tighten up, we just play too stressed. So it's just getting the message across that relax, do your job, go have fun, right? And there's no reason to tense up in a big moment. When it's time, you'll come and you'll make your play.
And that was kind of an ongoing theme, I feel like, through the press conference today, is the importance of this team is tightening up at inopportune times, and they need to stay loose, continue to have fun, because when they get tight, they make mistakes. Whether that's an overthrown ball, whether that's not making a tackle, not having the assignments right, penalties at the wrong time, because that's something that Spencer Petras also kind of echoed in his evaluation of the team so far to this point in the season.
It is kind of cool the way our schedule is set up to where we go 4 games a bye, 4 weeks in a bye, so we can really take a step back, look at the season thus far. I think I'll just speak offensively, to our side of the ball. Obviously, our record is not what we want. It's not where we expect it to be. It's not what we're capable of, but it's what we earned. And I think offensively, the main thing for us is that we have put on tape kind of week after week that we can move the ball really well. When things are good, things are really good. But we have lacked the consistency through 4 games to achieve the results that we want. And that's been a huge focus over this bye week. And the good news for us is that the majority of the season is still in front of us. All of Mountain West plays in front of us. And yeah, we're excited to get back out there.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when we were trying to ask these guys questions, trying to think their thoughts on what's kind of going wrong, and obviously the thing is, if they knew the answer to that, then they probably wouldn't be in this situation. So we're kind of putting them on the spot with questions where there isn't necessarily an answer. Even if they're being as brutally honest as possible, I don't know if they could have come up with the exact answer of why isn't the offense moving the ball, why isn't this happening. But yeah, that one thing they kind of harped on a couple of times were just playing tight, not Nate Dreiling talking about playing loose, not getting all worked up and letting the moment get to you. That could very well be it, and maybe that's what happens every time they get inside the plus 35. Is like, oh, we're about to score, and then suddenly you're not about to score.
Right, things get too tight.
And then Elliot Nimrod, is getting in his own head, where everyone's piling on Elliot Nimrod, forgetting that last year was a pretty solid kicker. Like, he was perfectly serviceable. Could hit 50-plus yard field, at least 40-plus yard field goals with decent reliability, and he'd hit just about everything inside of 35. He wasn't perfect. He missed some kicks he shouldn't have missed last year, or kicks you don't expect guys to miss a whole lot. This year, he's just kind of got it into his head. And I don't know, he's got the yips, he's got something, but he's a good kicker who's having a bad run, and that's just kind of emblematic of everyone on this team, where every one of these guys in the offense should be talented enough to get the job done. In a lot of these games, they're just not. Whether it's in their head, whether it's just something not translating with the offensive scheme, or, just something is gone wrong. And you better hope they took this week to find a way to fix it. Because if they haven't, then we're just going to spend the rest of the year saying, all right, when are they going to fix it? And then we'll be at the 12th game of the year and be like, all right, are they going to fix it? They're going to show some pride for the final game of the year, and who knows what will happen.
Quickly, one more text before we hit another timeout, 2444. I would assume that playing 4 ranked teams in the first 6 weeks is a record. I think we may be better than our record indicates this season, but it's going to be tough to find wins.
I have a hard time agreeing with that when you lose to Temple. Now, maybe there's some rollover effect if you get beat up by a couple of teams, and then maybe you're not your best on a road game at Temple. But you can't really say you're better than your record when one of your losses is by 16 points to Temple. I fully get the sentiment, but that's the problem. It's like if they beat Temple, yeah, I'd say they're probably better than 2-2. Especially given the performance against Utah, where it was good for like a third of the game. But when you lose a game like Temple, like that's why I've suddenly fallen back on being pessimistic. It's like, okay, that was a game you were supposed to win 100%, and not only did you lose, but you lost kind of badly.
Yeah,
that's the problem we're running into. Is you can't say you're better than your record because you play a bunch of ranked teams when you also lost to a really bad team.
It is unusual in the first half of the season for Utah State to play 4 ranked teams, 4 ranked opponents.
Yeah, and I'm going back to see how many times they've played ranked opponents in quick succession, and I'm through 2010 so far, just casually scrolling back, and I've only found one instance of back-to-back, let alone more than 4 and 6. Well, it'd be like 4 and 5 weeks, really. So, yeah, it's not really happened very often.
All right, quick timeout. A lot more to discuss. We'll hear more from the coach and players from their media availability earlier today. Next on the Full Court Press.
Experience Barrel and Stave on Federal Avenue, where good food, good drinks, and good people meet, using local ingredients to create the most delicious taste possible. Barrel and Stave is a cozy cocktail bar offering a large selection of wines, whiskeys, and cocktails, along with an amazing selection of bar bites and weekly chef specials, guaranteed to tantalize your taste buds. With handmade pasta nights every Tuesday and Thursdays that offer $2 off drafts. Come see what you've been missing. Barrel and Stave, Tuesday through Saturday evenings on Federal Avenue in Logan.
Getting engaged? If so, come to where Utah gets engaged. S.E. Needham Jewelers in historic downtown Logan. You'll find an incredible selection of diamond engagement rings starting at $500 with our integrity price guarantee. To make your purchase more affordable, we now offer 0% down, 6 months interest-free financing. When you come, you'll hand-select a diamond and choose the perfect ring that meets your budget. Again, take 6 months with no interest on approved credit. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Disasters don't wait for a convenient time. When the unexpected strikes, call the trusted team at Blue Sky. Remember, Blue Sky is that same great ARS team you know and trust.
This is Tom with Blue Sky Restoration. When disaster strikes, whether it's a flood, fire, mold damage, or an unforeseen accident, Blue Sky will clean up, repair, and restore your home or business like it was before. No disaster is too big or too small. For all your restoration needs, you can trust our Blue Sky team.
Whether you're a farmer working the fields, a homeowner tackling weekend projects, or a contractor building the next big thing, you need a Kubota machine that works as hard as you do. And Cash Equipment is home to all your Kubota equipment, service, and parts needs. From plowing fields and clearing land to digging trenches and moving material. Come see why Cash Equipment and Kubota are the choice of champions on the farm, at home, and on the job site. Cash Equipment in Hyde Park and online at cashequipment.com.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen and Kingpin. Forgot to ask you how that went earlier today.
Went pretty good. I went down to FanX on Saturday. Spent about 4 or 5 hours there with my brothers. We all had pretty sweet costumes, I think. I had a brother go as a Jedi. One went as a Ring Wraith. And then I went as Kingpin. And a lot of people seemed to like my costume. I guess I was like the only Kingpin there.
Oh,
I think that was probably why. Is I was the only one, because there were other Ring Wraiths and Witch King, and then there were a bunch of Jedi as well. So I kind of popped out a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
A lot of people.
It's always good to be a little unique. Those kind of things.
And it made me feel pretty good. So yeah, a lot of people noticed. A lot of people liked the costume.
Are you gonna keep the bald head?
No, Thing is that I had the head shaved. I got my head shaved on last Wednesday, I think. And then I had to reshave it like Saturday morning. I just took my electric razor and went over it again because I was already getting sprouting. You can probably, if you look close, you can see the little hairs sprouting on my head already.
Getting a little stubble.
That was happening on Saturday, and so I had to let's make sure the head's actually fully bald. But no, I'm just gonna grow it back out. However long it takes. I don't know how long it'll take. Of course, my dad told me, or somebody told me the story of, I think it was my dad. Like he had like an old teacher or something that shaved his head because he made some kind of agreement with like his students, and he shaved his head and his hair didn't grow back, and then like 30 years later it grew back.
Wow.
So it's like he was basically unintentionally bald for like 30 years.
For a long time. Wow.
Just kind of a weird thing, but my hair appears to be growing back, so I don't think I'm in danger of that.
Going back to the Full Court Press text line before we continue on, 9315. I think we are an amazing team. Just too much outside thing making us not gel.
Maybe, like, I think that could be it. I've kind of downplayed what I think all the outside noise is kind of overplayed because, like, they all banded together, and I feel like this team's problems are their own creation. Now, I'm not in the locker room, so maybe there is still, stress over what happened. It may not be like, focusing or like strife or anything like that. It's just maybe stress that's carried over, conscious or unconscious. It may be unconscious stress that's causing this. That's entirely possible. I guess I can't rule that out, but to me, it just feels like it's an on-field problem, and they're not resolving it.
Yeah,
at least so far.
Right, and Jon Ross Maye also kind of addressed that in response to your question about solid starts, but the team seems to fade and struggle to finish, and that is something that has been discussed this week or last week during their bye week.
Consistent themes, I would just take it on my plate. I think I haven't been pushing hard enough to just finish the game. We're all a team, and at the end of the day, like, we all have 111s to do, but we all need to stay focused and stay the message we've been talked about is being consistent. And, week in, week out, that's the message through and through. And I think that, we've lacked that defensively through all 4 quarters. And so we plan to go ahead and put on a show consistently all 4 quarters.
Well, I think that's all that we're asking for is for this team to be consistent. Certainly we don't want them to be consistently bad.
Yeah. You don't want that.
That's what we're asking for. Consistently good, because we've seen signs. This team has shown flashes that it can be very good offensively and defensively. They just haven't been able to string enough of that together to get a victory. And when they did do it for a half, they looked good for Robert Morris. But this is a team that's still searching for that consistency. They show us flashes of what they can be, which still gives us hope that this team can figure some things out and still salvage a respectable season.
Yeah, they need to have a game where you say you want to see them play 4 quarters. I just want to see them play 3. Like, at best, we've seen 2, maybe like 1.5 with Robert Morris, where they did okay for like part of the second quarter and then did fairly well in like the third quarter and then were okay in the fourth, if I remember that game correctly. And then they had nothing against USC, like a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half against Utah, and then like a good quarter against Temple. So try 3 quarters, like play 3 good quarters, and that'll be reason for optimism, which is unfortunate that that's the bar I'm having to set down is like 3 quarters, please. Like play 3 quarters of the game at a decent or at least, productive level. And if they do that, that's not going to beat Boise State. It's not going to beat UNLV. You might come close against Washington State, but when you get against the easier half of the schedule later in the year, might be enough to beat a Colorado State, a New Mexico, San Diego State. And if they are lucky enough that they are still in range of a bowl come week 8 or 9, then being able to play 3.5 quarters, maybe that'll, and heaven help us if we see this team play 4 complete quarters, because then they'll finally figured it out.
Right.
But that might be enough to get to that bowl game, the 6-6, which seems unlikely now, but who knows?
Let's see. We've got a couple more texts coming through. We'll hold on to those. We'll discuss those on the other side of this timeout. Love to continue to hear from you on the Full Court Press text line, 435-339-0321.
This is Ryan, My Mattress. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with online bed-in-a-box mattresses. If value is the combination of price and quality, these beds are not a good value. They cost about $1,000 and they last about 3 years. That's not a very good ratio. At My Mattress, you can get a $799 Sealy Posturepedic that will last you 10 plus years. The best value is at My Mattress. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally?
Cold weather is here, which means you'll be using your gas fireplace again. Let Advanced Fireplace and Stove, the 4-time Best of Northern Utah gold medal winner, help you get it ready for those cold Cache Valley winters. Schedule a service call with one of their service pros today and receive 20% off if you mention this ad. If you're building a new home, Advanced Fireplace and Stove can design and install a Heat and Glow fireplace. From traditional to modern, Heat and Glow has something for every design and every budget. Find out more at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
Now here's a concept. You earmark 1/3 of your profits to go back into the community, to local charities. Dex Imaging does that. My name is Anthony Wagoner, and I'd like to share with you what I know about Dex, the company that acquired Valley Office Systems. Dex Imaging is committed to continuing quality customer service while raising the bar to become a strong community partner. Join us in creating the brightest image for tomorrow. Contact us at deximaging.com.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Well, the days are getting shorter. Temperatures haven't not exactly fallen.
They will.
It's been warm lately, but eventually it will get cooler. So be prepared now for those cooler temperatures and how that affects your vehicle. Stop in at Napa Auto Parts before too late. They've got several different locations between Preston and Providence, locally owned and operated, Napa Auto Parts. So a couple of more texts coming through on the Full Court Press text line that we had to kind of park in the queue for a second. 6543. This conference is awful this season. 2 good teams, 2 average teams, and 8 teams that are just bad. Nice that the Pac-12 screen has covered this a bit.
Yeah, and the funny thing is like several of the teams that are bad are ones that are going to the Pac-12. Like Utah State and San Diego State have been bad. Fresno State just got whooped by UNLV. And those are 3 of the teams that are leaving. And Boise State's doing all right. I guess Colorado State's not doing good either. So it's like Boise State's like the one team that's doing good that's going to the Pac-12. Fresno State's going to have a decent season, and that's kind of the best you're going to get.
San Jose's off to a pretty decent start, 3-1 under their new head coach. Fresno State's 3-2. Then UNLV's undefeated. Boise State's 3-1. Then after that, you got a bunch of teams that are 2-2, 2-3, 1-3, 1-4.
Yeah, like when I've been doing my power rankings where it's like you got UNLV and Boise State, and anyone's power rank is going to have one of those 2 teams at the top. Pick which one. I'm not really going to spend much time debating who I think's better. Just pick one. And then you got either San Jose State or Fresno State. I had Fresno State above San Jose State, but now you're not sure with Fresno State getting their can kicked by UNLV. But pick one of those between those 2 for 3 and 4. And then, after that, like I think I mentioned I have Colorado State at 5th. Like, that, like, really? 5th in the conference? Colorado State? But who else are you going to pick? Like, who are you going to pick to be 5th in this conference? Like, your best options are Colorado State, Nevada, like one of the few Mountain West teams below that top 4 that has a win against an FBS team. Like I moved Nevada up to like 7th in my own solely because they have a win against an FBS team, whereas like San Diego State, Utah State, Air Force, none of them have a win against an FBS team. Wyoming just got there first, but it was against Air Force.
Right.
So, like, what are you going to do when you pick beyond those top 4 teams? It's just like, I don't like any of you, but somebody's got
to be there.
Somebody's got to be technically, quote, unquote, in the top half of the conference. And none of them deserve to be there, but somebody is.
Somebody's got to do it. Another quick text, 8968. There's been enough off-the-field distractions to ruin most good teams. There's definitely been a lot this year for a variety of different reasons. But this team trying to focus on just themselves. That's something they tried to address during the off week and trying to get themselves better for conference play as it starts on Saturday. We'll be back after Dan Patrick, Above the Noise, with more on the Full Court Press.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. After the addition of head coach Kirby Smart and back-to-back national titles, the majority of football fans were ready to anoint Georgia as the new gold standard in college football. Those expectations only increased after Nick Saban decided to retire, but things haven't gone exactly as planned. The team can't seem to stay out of their own way off the field, and when these two teams go head-to-head, Smart has compiled just a 1-6 record against the Crimson Tide. Alabama's dominance is impressive, but the Tide's elite roster construction isn't what makes the team's reign over college football so unique. It's the program's culture. For years, Saban has preached the importance of leadership and the next man up mentality. So much so that even without the man spreading the knowledge, it's already trickled down to his successor, Kalen DeBoer. And if DeBoer can continue to preach that message while keeping elite recruits like Ryan Williams in the mix in Tuscaloosa, the talk of Alabama's football demise may have been greatly over-exaggerated. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.